Welcome to Taste Buds. I'm Debra Eckerling, goal strategist, writer, and foodie. And today I'm speaking with cookbook author and playwright Leann Chin. Welcome, Katie. Good to see you.
Thank you, Deborah. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I'm really excited. Before we started recording, we were talking about how you are Jewish. What does that mean, and how does that factor into your world of cooking?
um, my husband is Jewish. We're raising our children Jewish. I have twins who are 15. They had a B'nai mitzvah. We belong to a temple. We observe the high holidays. I think it's a beautiful religion. And so I support, my family's observance of the religion and all of the holidays. There's incredible symbolism in Asian cuisine, but there's also incredible symbolism in Jewish cuisine. So I love to marry the two. In fact, my last cookbook, Katie Chin's Global Family Cookbook, features four cultural celebrations, and one happens to be Hanukkah. And I was really excited because my kids were in on the action. They helped to make the saftin yot. The recipes actually were contributed by my dear friend Faye Levy, renowned Jewish food writer, also featuring my buddy Nate Burkus and Jeremiah Brett. So her recipes are in there. They're so delicious. So when we celebrate and or entertain, for example, when we do latkes, I'll try to put a little Asian spin on the applesauce, add a little ginger to that, for example. So I'm trying to merge the two cultures together whenever I can. Or, for example, I do gourmet dipped fortune cookies as part of my catering business, Walkstar Catering. So we've done a ton of Hanukkah themed fortune cookies in the past. We've done actual edible, like for my kids' B'nai Mitzvah, edible images of their face on the cookies. I'm doing helping to do a fundraiser for a temple, and we're doing custom messages inside in Hebrew. So, we try to embrace both cultures, and, we as a multi-culti family also celebrating Christmas because we do both.
Well, and so we're recording this in April, and it's going to come out in May. And May is um it's double heritage month for Asian Jews.
Yes,
Anyway,
yes.
so is that like a big thing in your family? Or is that just like every day in your family?
Um, it's a big deal because, in light of what's gone on in this country with Asian hate, um, similarities again between Jewish and Chinese Asian culture. I just really want to instill a sense of pride in my children from both sides of their heritage. I think it's extremely important. I grew up feeling very ashamed of being Chinese. I grew up in the Midwest in Minneapolis where there were very few Asians. And so finally, later in life, and remarkably through food, I learned to really love and embrace my heritage. And in fact, I've written a one woman show called Holy Shiitake, A Walk Star is Born. And I'm performing it 3 times in May at the White Fire Theater in Sherman Oaks, and it's really a celebration of my journey towards self-love and, my love of food. So, we teach our kids to be super proud of being Jewish and also super proud of being Chinese.
I love that. So basically food is fodder for like everything in your life.
It really is. It's an expression of love in Chinese families. For example, if you got all A's when I was growing up in my Chinese household, you would get a whole steamed fish and black bean sauce. If you got all B's, you'd get pork chow mein. So it's an expression of love, but it's storytelling, and it's also legacy, especially in my case because my mother passed away when my twins were 2. So I feel like every time I make one of her dishes, she lives on in them and through her memory, and also teaching my kids how to cook.
And really there's nothing more Jewish than that as well. So I see that it's like your entire life is the similarities between the two, but that expression of the history and the love. So where did the love of food and cooking come from for you?
Well, it was reignited later in life. I'll just quickly tell you my mother's story because it's just so fascinating, but she immigrated from China in the 1950s to Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I was born and raised, where there were very few Asians and very few Jewish people at the time. But she always loved to cook. She threw a luncheon for some of her sewing clients. She was a seamstress making 50 cents an hour. And remarkably, the sewing clients that she cooked this luncheon for to thank them were all Jewish. Like all her friends were Jewish, which is kind of funny. But anyway, they encouraged her to start teaching and catering, and one thing led to another. She became a successful caterer out of our tiny basement. She caught the attention of a local socialite, Jewish, who happened to be friends with the owner of the Minnesota Twins, who happened to be friends with Sean Connery. It's a crazy story, okay? Sean Connery came to Minneapolis to visit Robert Redford, who was directing Ordinary People. I was there serving them appetizers. They were blown away by her food, and Sean Connery invested in her first restaurant, and she went on to build a $50 million restaurant empire, having never gone to high school, having she was making 50 cents an hour as a seamstress. So, this love of food was instilled in me, but we didn't realize how lucky we were because we just wanted hamburger helper, but we had to eat stir fries every night. So I had to really come full circle and first become proud of who I was, to then really uh, become proud of my Chinese cooking heritage.
And where did how did you go for or where did your career start out, and how did you get to this too? Because I can't imagine you doing anything that did not involve a love of food.
So we were trapped in a tiny basement as children, like Chinese child labor, while all the other kids were at the mall. We were stuck in a basement frying chicken pieces. So I was like, I'm getting the hell out of here. Despite my mother's success, I was like, I'm getting the hell out of here. I'm going to make my own mark. So I moved to LA after college. I worked in the film and TV industry for 14 years and did film and TV marketing. And then one day I decided to throw a dinner party, but I had completely forgotten how to cook. So I kept calling my mom and asking her questions, and she was like, "This is ridiculous." So she got on a plane with frozen lemon chicken. She showed up on my doorstep. She cooked the entire thing, but let everyone think that I had cooked it. And then my friends were like, "Oh my gosh, you make this look so easy. You should do a book together." And I was like, "We should do a book together." And I just decided to change my life. So I quit my job as a senior VP at Fox. I left my then husband, and I completely changed my life. And she and I came together, and we had a cooking series on PBS called Double Happiness. We had a catering business in LA called Double Happiness, and we got to go on the Today Show a bunch of times, and we did all these beautiful things together. But the biggest gift was through those quiet moments cooking. She opened up about her life in China and all the hardships that she endured, being in an arranged marriage, being a marginalized businesswoman. And through these stories, I really learned to appreciate all of her sacrifice, and that all of those hardships she was able to heal through the act of cooking. And that really I just like cracked open and felt like it was my responsibility to share and honor her culinary legacy. So that's my main mission in life, is to do that and share her story.
And your story through hers as well, right?
Yes, yes, because let me just say, at first, when we joined forces, I was like more into the like getting on TV shows part. Like there's a part of my show where it's like she hacks up lobsters. I'm worried about chipping my nails. You know what I mean? But she was really smart, and she decided to abandon me at one point, and she went to Europe with her friend for 3 months because she knew the only way I was going to learn is if she left town. And I'm like, where did you go? Because I had all these catering gigs booked, and I had to finally, like I like to say, I finally flew from her bird's nest soup, and I had to figure it out on my own. So she was
Wow,
very wise in that way.
what a gift. I mean, the experience and then getting kicked out of the bird's nest. I love that. Uh,
And by the way, so my oldest sister is married to a Jewish man. My brother is married to a Jewish woman. My other sister had another Jewish relationship on the other team. We won't go into that. And then I have another sister. But anyway, so my mother also, learned to adapt because my oldest sister is 13 years older than me. So suddenly, Jewish culture is being integrated into our family. And she just always had such a great attitude about it. Like, for example, for Hanukkah, we were trying to make the safgin yot, and my husband just couldn't figure out the recipe, and my mom was like a culinary savant, like, she could do anything. So, she realized he was struggling, and he walked away. We came back an hour later, and she made them, but then she put a hole in the middle because she didn't know.
Uh, 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 such a beautiful story, and like I said before, what a wonderful gift that you've got. The memories in your history, it's all, it's out there. I mean, who else has their mother-daughter story, like, through TV and through Cookbook, and just absolute beautiful, and it sounds to me like you were destined to marry a Jewish man. It was just, we call bashert, right?
Yes.
Meant to be.
Yes. I mean, I threw a dinner party once, not consciously realizing it was 3 of my Asian American girlfriends and their Jewish husbands. And then but there was a gay couple also, men who were Jewish, and then one of them wrote me a thank you note that said, "Thank you so much for inviting us to the Asian women and the Jewish men who love them dinner party." But this goes back to the similarities in the culture, right? I mean,
Mhm.
guilt, education, food, persecuted people, like, we have a lot in common.
And all survivors, right? Something where both cultures are still doing on a regular basis.
Completely,
Yeah.
completely.
So, as you know, I always invite my guests to share a recipe. So, what is something good and fun that's really going to excite people about Chinese cooking?
Well, we could talk about a dumpling recipe. We could talk about noodle recipes. We could talk about other favorites like orange chicken or kung pao chicken, which are obviously really popular. But, I like to put a lot of modern spins on my cuisine. So, one delicious dessert recipe is raspberry Nutella wontons.
Ooh.
Because you can really put anything in a dumpling wrapper, right? You can be as creative as possible. So, my daughter and I also cooked together, and we had a cooking series during the pandemic called Cooped Up Cooking with Katie and Becca. She's now 15. But we came up with this recipe in which you just take Nutella, raspberries, right? And then you take fresh raspberries, boil those down with sugar to make a glaze. But all you do is put raspberries, Nutella in the round dumpling wrapper, take a little egg wash, seal it, deep fry it for like a minute until it's golden brown. Then you just drizzle it with that raspberry glaze, and it's like the most delicious thing you've ever had.
Ooh, it sounds like the most delicious thing I've ever had, and I've never had it.
Right? I mean, it's like, how can it be bad? It's like hot oozing Nutella and berries and a crispy outside. Delicious.
So you still cook plenty for yourself. You just don't you don't only cook for other people.
No, I mean, we cook. I mean, my husband and I both like to cook, and our lives, like so many people in LA, our lives are just totally crazy and insane. But I like to always test new recipes too. I get ideas, I see things, but for my catering business, Walkstar Catering, I have to, constantly feel like I'm on the cutting edge and offering, modern takes on things. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, we do have to order takeout sometimes. Funny story though, my son, I was so crazed, I picked up lasagna from the store. Don't tell anybody. And it said serves 4 because I had like 5 things going on. I put it in the oven. I come home with my daughter Becca who's starving and I'm like, "Where is the rest of the lasagna?" He ate the entire thing for a family of 4.
Growing boys, right? What can you do?
Yes, I know, I know. So I feel like, listen, we all are so crazed, but there are so many resources now, especially cooking Asian food. I think people used to be really intimidated by it. They got a wok for their wedding or their birthday and it's somewhere in their attic and they don't know where it is and they feel like they can't cook Asian food. Well, that's not true. First of all, you can use a skillet. Stoves today reach such a high heat point that a skillet is fine. But there's so many resources online and well-stocked grocery stores, carry so many things that they didn't 20 years ago, from bok choy to Thai basil to, rice noodles. So I would just recommend, start small, don't get intimidated. Maybe start with a recipe that only has 5 ingredients, and then just, work your way up, and the more comfortable you become, the freer you will be to improvise and be creative with your recipes.
Ooh, I love that. Yeah, always start with fewer ingredients usually means less trouble, right? Less
Yes.
anxiety. But what about people who are like, okay, I could do all the basic things. What is your recommendation for like up leveling
I mean,
Chinese cooking?
I feel like there's so many resources on YouTube because it might be, Chinese cuisine can be extremely simple, but it can also be very complex and complicated. So I would say don't like decide you're going to do tea smoked duck breast 20 minutes before you're going to try to make it. Like, take the time to feel prepared. Take the time, for your mise en place to make sure you have everything cut, cleaned, and ready to go, especially when we're talking about stir fries, because you don't want to be like chopping your carrots when your pea pods are already in there. So the things that take longer to cook go in the wok, first. So I used to have my kids when they were younger number everything with post-it notes, alongside my wok. So it was organized. So just take the time and watch. I mean, there's videos, dude. Like, there's so many resources now that make the journey easier. And also, it might not look beautiful if you're trying something new, but it's probably going to taste pretty good. So just cut yourself some slack. Like, when I teach people how to make dumplings, they're so stressed out. I'm like, you know what? It's still going to taste delicious. Like, just relax. Or buy one of those crimper things.
I'm glad you brought up the dumplings again, or in the wontons. Is there a proper way to wrap these things, or do we just guess?
Well, I mean, again, I would Google it on YouTube, but, uh, the best way for me to explain it is, you kind of if you're making, like, a classic pot sticker, you make a loose taco, but don't seal it, and basically, the back half of the dumpling wrapper should stay, flat, and the front you make, almost like an empanada. You make, little pleats, and you press the front against the back. If you're afraid to do it, just make a half moon shape. Nobody cares. You know what I mean? It's still gonna taste delicious. Then maybe like, okay, next time I'm gonna try a couple of those pleats. Um, but just again, I think videos are great. Shumai is an open-faced steam dumpling. That's uh, takes a little more skill, but again, in time, you just keep practicing it. Muscle memory will kick in, and that's basically taking the round wrapper, spreading the filling in a thin layer, and then you just gather. I just kind of like go almost like a pottery wheel, go around and around and around, and then naturally the pleats start to form on their own, and it almost looks like a flower. But again, nobody cares.
So I'm getting the lesson is, go with it. Don't worry. Have fun and enjoy the process because if it's good, no one cares. Is that
Well,
the
it's
lesson?
gonna I mean, unless you really screw it up, it's still gonna taste yummy. It might not be that pretty the first time you do it, but you might surprise yourself. I've taught a lot of classes where people are so intimidated and so scared and that they, like, produce a beautiful looking dumpling. So, you just have to I feel like the perfectionists and the overthinkers struggle, whereas other personality types are just kinda like, "Okay, I'm just gonna go for it." But eventually you'll get there.
I think that's a lesson in life too, right? Things take time, they take practice, but the more you do it, the better you become and you will get whether it's a yummy meal or maybe you redo your entire life to embrace cooking because that was, what you grew up with. I know, I'm making big leagues
Absolutely.
here.
Yeah.
Do you have any final food for thought you'd like to share?
Well, I always just like to say it doesn't really have to do with food, but when I changed my life completely, I happened to see this quote in Oprah's magazine. It said, "Leap and the net will appear." And I guess this kind of goes back to dumpling making. I just decided, what's the worst that could happen if I decide to change my life? Like, what's the worst? Like, honestly, right? And for me, I mean, I didn't have kids at the time, so I could take more risks, but I realized that I could always fall back on what I did before, which was marketing and consult. So I did that on the side, which gave me the freedom to pursue my culinary life. And actually, I consulted for many years on the side, and then once I committed fully to being a chef, um, that's when all the, doors started opening. But, everybody's different, so it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can take baby steps, but I feel like, honestly, if not now, then when? Because life is short. So we have to chase our dreams.
Oh, I am so with you. See, now you're treading into my other life as goal strategist and author of your
Right.
goal guide. It's really
Right.
all about you can't get what you want unless you know what that is. But once you figure out what that is, even the little steps, whether it's changing your life or making dumplings, will get you to a more beautiful finished product.
Absolutely. But you have to start with the first step.
You do, whether it's experimenting with food or finding a different way that you want to change your life, it will add up and make a difference.
Absolutely. I just was at a roundtable with a novelist, and she pivoted as well. She had worked in tech and always dreamt of being a novelist. And she's since written 5 novels. But she said, if you write 1 page a day, at the end of the year, you'll have a 365-page novel. So when you think about it that way, it's like, that's right. But if you don't take that first step to write the first page, it's never
Right.
going to
And
happen.
think about it this, if you do a different recipe a day, at the end of a year, you will have a cookbook.
Yes. Or you will
Hmm.
have mastered how to make 365 things. Right?
Absolutely. Katie Chen, thank you so much. Where can people learn more about you and your one woman show and all of the things, Katie Chen?
My blog is chefkatiechin.com. You can follow me on social media at Chef Katie Chin. On Instagram, in my bio, there's a link to purchase tickets for my 3 remaining shows in May 9th, 16th, and May 25th. All shows raising funds for various AAPN nonprofits in Los Angeles.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for the wonderful conversation, Katie Chen. Thank you for tuning in to Taste Buds with Deb. Don't miss an episode. You can subscribe on YouTube and or your favorite podcast platform. And you can go to jewishjournal.com/podcasts to read the articles and get recipes that go with each episode. And you can also learn more at tastebudswithdeb.com. So go, have fun, baby steps in your cooking. And until next time, bon appetit.